Facts, hustle pays price. One slice, got the ball dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle pays price. One slice, got the ball dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. I'm married to the game. That's why I made my wife. Said I die alone until that she's probably right. One thing that's for sure, I'm stranger to the light. I'm Satan's full of fragrance and a shoulder full of stripes. Don't know it like myself. I say self like
come in and have them put their names in the chat.
Spot rags, swallow rocks, I'm getting high myself. Stand right like the life I'm building. West side secret, I might got killed. That is so tall, I think I might got still. Legendary baller like Mike, like Will. 96 a baller, thug like 4 wheels. Up against the wall, smart with that Fox Hill. Like a boss asked me how I feel. Successful street, touching them first meals. All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle pay the price. One slice, got to go to dice. That's why all my life, grinding all my life. All my life, learning all my life. Sacrifice, hustle pay the price. One slice, got to go to dice. That's why.
I have one, okay.
For the new this little Grammy, I stay, gotta feel me, but I'm trying to know you, gotta make some choice, money out of options, I've been going off, and they gone on the side.
Ain't this what they've been waiting for? You ready? I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this, so I had to grind like that, to shine like this. In a matter of time I spent, was locked up in the back of the paddy wagon, cuffs locked on wrist. See my dreams unfold, nightmares come true. It was time to marry the game, and I said, yeah, I do. If you want it, you gotta see it with a clear eye view. That shorty, she trying to bless me like I said I do, like a sneeze. Please for them to squeeze, I'm getting cream. Never let them get in between of what we started. Look, but I'm lying hearted. They love me when I was stuck in their head. When I departed, I go and get it regardless. Draw it like I'm an artist who crawling with straight to walking with foreigns in my garages are foreign. Menage, you sucking and swallowing everything for $1. They tell me get it, my God. I did it without an album. I did it for Mariah. Love, now I'm on fire. Icy as the hot and feeling flying. When I bought the Rolls Royce, they know that was lease. Then I bought that new Ferrari, hey, the rest in peace. Hey, the rest in peace to the parking lot. Phantom so thin, can't even fit in the parking spot. You ain't talking about money, then what you talking about? Gangsters moving silent, and I don't talk a lot. I don't say a word. I don't say a word until my granddad and I got what I deserve. Hold on, wait a minute. You thought I was finished? We don't want to
All right. Let's give it up for our DJ Young Wavy Fox. Can we give her a round of applause for getting us started for today? Let's give it a virtual round of applause. If I could see it, throw some hand claps in your virtual screen. But welcome to our Building a Better Brother virtual summit presented by the Urban Assembly and the Black Man Can Incorporated. I'm so excited to see everyone here today. We're gonna have a really powerful 90 minutes. We have amazing speakers who have joined us from all over the country to facilitate breakout groups. We have some great one-on-one conversations with powerful activists and therapists. So today is going to be really powerful. And it's a space for all the young men in attendance. This is a safe space for you to be vulnerable, to ask questions, and to meet amazing men who love you, right? So I want you to know that this space is created because we love you. We know that this space is needed to talk, build brotherhood, develop positive self-identity. So just thank you. My name is Brandon Frame. I am the Deputy Director of Social Emotional Learning at the Urban Assembly, as well as the founder of the Black Man Can. And it's a really honor for all of you to be here. And again, today is going to be really powerful. So we're going to get started. You don't want to hear from me. That's not why you're here. So we're going to get started with our first spoken word performance of today. And that is by my brother out in Yonkers, New York. Kevin Saunders. So I'm turning over to Kevin for the first spoken word performance of today.
Real quick moment of silence for George Floyd. My dreams keep me up at night. My dreams keep me up at night. I lay down, but my heart races with such anticipation for a finish line I'm afraid I'll never cross, because for each dream there is a fear, an alternate nightmare that my failures bring my sons to tears. I guess restless would define my heartbeat, and my vibe is amplified 10 times when I recline. So the pressure that I feel when I lay my head to rest is distress, my heart beating out of my chest, because it just wants what's best for you, and him, and her, and you all on the screen too. Just think of the things that we could change if we led with love and followed up with action instead of a Kanye shrug. So in order to teach a lesson, I pose to you this question: what is more powerful than fear? Answer: the belief that you can be the one to change the feeling in the air. Elements of nitrogen and oxygen mixed with vapors of oppression and supremacy form a smog so thick that I'm sick. And Eric Gardner and George Floyd, they can't breathe. And that's why I'm so concerned about our legacy. But in my dream, I saw a future where youngin' took a stand and inspired a generation to move beyond second class, overtook the political system with a multicultural coalition, and promised to protect us all as equal under the law, walked it and then talked it. Conversation started, and as God's children grew closer, those ugly smog clouds departed. What a dream. What a thought to think that this could be. What a future. What a world this would be, to see how surreal it is to feel both hope and fear. How exhausting to lay awake at night because you care, and greet the pink sun as it rises time after time. For each dream that you dream, there is a bag under your eye. Because when your vision is God-given and placed in your heart, there is an unrelenting pull telling you to get up and start. Don't you dare turn away. Don't you dare try to hide. You can try to escape, but it waits for you at night when you try to close your eyes. I pray your dreams keep you up at night.
Peace, King. Thank you so much, Kevin. You know, like I said, drop the emojis, drop the hand claps for Kevin for giving us that powerful spoken word. Thank you so much for getting us started in the right place and making this a safe space to be vulnerable and share our feelings and our thoughts of everything that is going on in the country. And so we're going to move to our second performance as we get started before we have our first one-on-one guest. So we're going to turn the stage over to my brother down in Connecticut, Malik Champlain, to share some spoken words with us this afternoon.
What's going on, Kings? So this came from someone asking me who I was, and I was like, I am the unspoken words of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I represent the brother that rocks chains and those that write checks. I'm the wind in the forest that whispers the story of my people. I'm that person in the kitchen they wouldn't serve because I wasn't their equal. I'm the beautiful voice praising the Lord in the gospel choir. I'm the repercussions of racism and Black power. I'm the original man, the beauty of God's greatest creation. I'm the beating heart of a race that will not accept annihilation. I'm the blood of a king. I'm the son of a queen. I'm that melanin in my skin that lets me skip the sunscreen. I'm the swag and swagger. I'm that crack in Liberty's bell. I'm the last dying breath of Trayvon, George, and Emmett Till. Hate in this country, it spreads like a disease. I'm the untold stories of those brothers hanging from trees. Black on black crime, it doesn't start with a trigger. It's the Willie Lynch theory. We call ourselves niggas. I'm the last of a dying breed, a man not afraid to roll up his sleeve. Parents, stop buying your kids sneakers versus a book to read. Men, stop running out in your families. We got a ship to lead. I'm the March on Washington where King had a dream. I'm the silent protest of the 1968 Olympic team. I'm the re-education of the miseducated Negro. From high school to jail, Jim Crow. My mother raised a strong black man, not a follower, but a leader. Look me in my eyes. I am my brother's keeper. I tell him, follow me, like the slaves did the North Star. I am because we are. We are because people before us, they raised the bar. I am both joy and pain. I am Malik Champlain.
Ooh.
Peace, y'all.
Peace, King. Bars, just straight bars. Thank you so much, Malik, for dropping those bars and giving us that inspiration that we needed to get this started. So both Kevin and Malik, thank you for getting us started in a positive, uplifting space to let them know that this is a space we are our brother's keeper. This is a space that we are here to be the best selves, and so we can be our best selves. And so that's actually going to move us into our first one-on-one speaker that we're going to have. Before we jump into our breakout groups, I thought it was important to have two one-on-one speakers that would really touch on the events of what's going on in this time, but also to provide information and knowledge. And so our first speaker that we're going to have an interview with for everyone to hear is Dr. Wes Bellamy, who is down in Virginia. And we are so honored to have him. Dr. Wes Bellamy, let me correct myself, Dr. Wes Bellamy, activist, politician. He is the chair of the political science department at Virginia State University, HBCU in the building. I've known Wes for several years. I went to his wedding, but we're really honored to have him here. And one reason why I asked Wes to join us is because thinking about everything that's going on in our country right now, I thought it was important for us brothers to hear from a man who turned his anger and frustration into policy and movements. If you remember, if we go back three or 4 years ago, it might even be not longer, but I know it was around that time where what happened in Charlottesville. Well, you're looking at the man right here who was the catalyst for bringing that change. You just saw last week that the governor of Virginia wants to take down the last remaining or the tallest statue of Robert E. Lee, right? But that all started in Charlottesville with Wes. And so he turned policy or anger and frustration into policy and movement. And so I think it's important for all of us to hear how he did that, what he went through, and figure out our own role that we should be playing in the movement now. So Wes, thank you for joining us today.
My brother, soon to be Dr. Frame. I appreciate you, my brother. Shout out to my man Malik, man. Phenomenal poem as well, and everybody who's on the call, who's on the Zoom. Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate you.
No problem. It's an honor. So the first question I want to ask first is, what is an activist? How would you define an activist in terms of moving forward as we move forward in this time? What is an activist?
Yeah, and I think that's a phenomenal question. I think there are multiple ways for us to identify what someone can be considered to be an activist. Some activists are loud and they protest in the streets. Some of them show up at city council meetings. Some of them legislate. Some show their activism by changing policy. Some show their activism by going in the classroom every single day and making sure that even though they may have inadequate resources, they commit themselves to getting straight A's. Some activists take action by going into their classroom and their teacher may not like them, but they sit in the front of the class anyway. They still knock out their work. Some activists show their concern for what it is that they want to get changed in a wide variety of ways. So I think it's important for us to keep in mind that there are several different ways for us to not only lift and elevate our voice, but to let our voice and our passion turn into action. I chose to be an activist and moving from being out in the street, leading protests and so forth, to running for office and being on the city council to say, I want to affect policy, because ultimately, in my opinion, everything comes back down to policy. And we don't have to beg anyone else to change our communities. We can change them ourselves. So that's the way in which I activate. And now we're just looking to convene with other brothers and sisters to take it to the next level.
Absolutely, and I love how you framed that with multiple ways that people can be involved, because I know we have a lot of young men who are thinking about how they can be involved and what they can do. So I appreciate you sharing that. And so tell us a little bit about what you did in terms of the steps you took to bring forth change in Charlottesville.
So in Charlottesville, Virginia, I served as the vice mayor from the years 2016 to 2020. I was the youngest person ever elected to our city council, and I'm only the 7th Black person ever elected. And one of the things that I was consistently hearing about was how Charlottesville was a place that just wasn't inclusive. And part of the reasons why we weren't inclusive and people, specifically Black people, didn't feel comfortable was because we had these massive statues and oaths to the Confederacy in our city. So I chose to take the approach of using my voice and my position as an elected official to call for change and have those statues removed. I worked with a wide variety of different people, and actually it was a 15-year-old ninth grader who wrote the original petition. Her name is Diana Bryant. She wrote the petition in her school to say, hey, she thinks those statues should be moved. I then took the petition, pushed it through council, got my colleagues involved, and eventually we were able to get a state law passed, which now we're seeing the remnants of. And you see these Confederate statues coming down across the state of Virginia, and ours will come down effectively in July. But across the country as a whole, we've seen a movement in terms of removing these statues. And I want to say this, when you decide to step up, you decide to speak up, not everybody's going to like it. We had white supremacists come to our city, as many of you remember in August of 2017. They've called me every kind of N-word you could think about. We've had bomb threats at our daughter's school. We've had threats against our lives and death threats and so forth, me and my wife and my family. But we've been able to persevere through. And again, that's how you know you're making the right change. When you are making someone else so angry that they're willing to hurt you because you're trying to do the right thing, it's not in those moments in which you retreat. It's those moments in which you stand even taller and you continue to push for what's right, because our community, and more importantly, people like yourselves, need us to stand tall.
Absolutely, that's powerful. I'm actually going to read an excerpt from the book. It says, they came with torches, they came with swords and shields, they came with guns, they came with signs that called me the N-word. Months earlier, they tried to take my livelihood, break down my family, and send us all a message. It was clear this was deeper than a statue. My city was in the midst of a change that the world would see. The monumental shift would have ramifications felt across the world and through my eyes. It was a fight that almost cost me everything, but it was worth it. Can you tell us, and you just touched upon that, but a little bit, tell us about why it was so worth it and what has been the outcomes of the fight that you put forth?
Mm-hmm. Well, I owe it to the ancestors who sacrificed their lives, who sacrificed their livelihoods, who sacrificed their dreams for many of us to be able to do the things that we're doing right now. And for them to just believe and think one day that things would change, we owe it to them to push for every kind of substantial and substantive change in which we can bring forth. So from that perspective, it was a no-brainer that we had to push through. So subsequently, since we've seen the statute debate, we were able to pass something called the equity package in Charlottesville that I wrote, which was essentially $4.5 million in resources from GED training to public housing redevelopment and things of that nature to our communities, and get that passed so those resources can come to help out our neighborhoods. We've also been able to pass something called the Business Equity Fund, which was essentially allows for Black-owned businesses to get up to $30,000 at a 1% interest rate for our communities to build up and scale up their businesses. And then we've done things like these Run These Streets campaigns, in which we get a bunch of brothers together and we run a 4-mile route through all of the public housing sites to encourage and improve on our physical fitness and encourage more physical health. And I mean, lastly, we've just been able to do things that not only bring our community together, but empower our people. And I know I said lastly, but lastly, I think it's important for everyone to know this. Sometimes God or whomever you believe in, Allah or the creator, the energy, whatever, they call you to start the race. You may not be there to finish it. You may not be in position when the race is over, but some of us are called to get the action started. And I think each and every single one of us has to ask ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice in order for our people to improve? What are we willing to sacrifice for our communities to become better? And lastly, what kind of legacy, when you leave this earth, do you want to leave? What do you want your children to think about you, your grandchildren? Do they want you to know, or do you want them to know that you stood up even when things were difficult? Do you want them to know that you were able to face challenges even when it made you uncomfortable? Do you have to be the rah-rah person? Is leadership leading 5,000 people in a march? Or is it going in every single day and acting with integrity? I think it's both. So you have to figure out what it is that you want to do, but most importantly, how do you want to be remembered? And for me, that's why we work.
Oh, that's just powerful, and you're just hitting on so many things that I think we all need to hear, but especially as Black men and boys and men of color, we really need to be thinking about these things as we move forward, as we want to push Black Lives Matter and our agenda as Black people and people of color forward. And so, can you talk about how you galvanize people to get behind your support or an initiative or a movement? Mm-hmm. How did you galvanize people to get behind you to push everything forward? Because we know we can't do it alone, but we have to do it as a village.
Yeah, well, being my most authentic self, I'm not a perfect individual. And I always say we don't need perfect politicians. We need regular people who are looking to make change. Whether that's me being an elected official, whether that's me being the political science department chairman at Virginia State, or whether that's me just being a guy who's walking around my community and trying to be a good husband and good father. We have to commit ourselves to just trying to be the best person that we can be. And that energy is easily spread. When people look at me, I hope that they see a person, again, who doesn't proclaim to be perfect, but I do have a vision. God has granted me with a vision to be able to move things forward. And I hope that with my actions, I can show people that I may have one way to get us to where we need to be. The second thing that I would say is, in terms of galvanizing people, is understanding that not all leaders lead from the front. Sometimes leading is being in the back. Sometimes leading is supporting someone else who's working on something else. Sometimes leading is just lending a word of advice. So it's important for, again, you having to understand what your best qualities are. And then lastly, I will say this: you can't lead anyone if you can't lead yourself. So I've become comfortable with who I am as a young Black man in this world, in this country, in my community, in my neighborhood. My most authentic self is a person who has parts in the side of his head, and I have Africa in the back on this side. Sometimes I wear dress clothes, sometimes I don't, but I'm always going to do my best and try to act and lead with integrity. So regardless of what I have on, regardless of what situation or what building I'm in, whether I'm in a meeting with the governor or whether I'm in a neighborhood with young men and women who live up the street from me, I want to be a person who people can think of. When you think of West Bellamy, they think of a person who has integrity. I've made many mistakes, some of them well documented. I've said crazy things on social media that's come back to bite me. I've said things in city council meetings that I probably shouldn't have said. But in every opportunity, there's always been a lesson for me to learn, improve, and become a better person. I don't have to be perfect to be loved by the Most High. I just have to be myself and carry out the mission that He's given me.
I mean, I just, we're gonna have to pass. We're gonna put your Cash App in the chat because do an offering there. So what we're also seeing in this time, right, is we're seeing a lot of companies, right, that we all, from the adults on this call as well as the youth on the call, that we see companies making these bold statements and standing up what advice would you have for all of us, youth and adults, to hold them accountable for the stances that they're taking?
Well, I think one, we have to understand what holding them accountable means. So are we providing these organizations with demands and recommendations for what we want to see in their communities? For example, if the government says that they're willing to proclaim that Black Lives Matter, then show us that Black Lives Matter with your budget. Show us that the city budget that is coming out is not so heavy on law enforcement and police, but also includes a great deal of resources for our communities to be better. If an organization or business says that Black Lives Matter, are they actually putting resources back into the community? Do they have after school space? Are they welcoming to all people, no matter what they look like, and specifically Black folk when they come into their business? Do they have practices that show that they're actually making Black folk at the forefront of what it is that they're doing, since they're proclaiming that Black Lives Matter? When we hear all of these dollar amounts that are coming out from all of these different companies, we have to do a deep dive into what organizations are actually receiving those donations. Is the Black Band Can getting $100 million from the NFL and whatnot from their initiatives that they're saying they put forth? Are we allowing them and guiding them to organizations and people who we know have a direct impact on our communities? That's how we hold them accountable. But again, you can't hold anyone else accountable if you're not willing to hold yourself accountable. We can't go out and say we want X, Y, and Z if, one, we don't have a plan, or two, we don't know what we're demanding, but lastly, we don't have a vision for what we're going to do when we receive the resources. So young men who are on this call, first and foremost, before you get upset with anyone else about what's going on, make sure we're doing an internal check to try to be the best person that we can be. Not perfect, but just the best you that you can be. In being the best you that you can be, you will make mistakes. I am a living testament of such. I may have a bunch of titles and a doctor or whatever behind my name, but I've made several mistakes and I'm still learning. But I take every opportunity to try to hold myself accountable and live and learn from each mistake. And then again, for the adults on this call, when we're talking about these organizations, we need to be very specific in hearing where it is that they're donating their resources, and then ensuring that those resources are being provided to the people who they say they're sending them to, and then the organizations who receive these resources, making sure they're carrying out the mission and doing the things that they said they would do once they had the resources.
That's so important in terms of that accountability. You spoke a lot about accountability right there, and that's so important. And so thinking about that, in terms of accountability in these organizations, how would a young man be able to really find out these different organizations in their community? Where should they go? Who should they be talking to in order to find out the different organizations, what they do, and where they can lend their time and resources?
Yeah, I think so. Every community is going to be different. How we operate in Charlottesville is different how they operate in New Haven, Connecticut, which is also different from how they operate in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is different from what they do in Atlanta, Georgia. So I think, one, it's important for us to be willing to step outside of our comfort zones, get in the street, get on the ground, talk to the people who are on the ground about what organizations are doing what. I think we know of the legacy organizations like the NAACP and Urban League and the 100 Black Men and things of that nature. But if we go out and we actually dare to talk to people, I'm sure that we can hear on a local level who's doing what in their community and how it's having a tangible impact. So I think you can utilize social media. You can just use the hashtag of the city in which you live, and I'm sure that there'll be several organizations that come up in terms of protests. You can maybe attend a protest or two and ask questions about who's doing what. Maybe you'll find out ways to lend your energy. But again, I would highly encourage, before you do any of that in terms of joining something else, make sure that you're comfortable with who you are so that your spirit is not co-opted and led in the wrong direction. There are a lot of people who are pulling for your energy right now. Let's make sure that we're using it in the best possible way that we can to bring about change.
And as we close your this one-on-one with you, which has been extremely powerful, tell us a little bit about the book. So first, everyone, after this, we'll be doing a giveaway where we'll be giving away a Black Man Can t-shirt, as well as Dr. Wes Bellamy's book, Monumental, It Was Never About a Statue. Just tell us about that. We might have some young men on there that do aspire to be authors and to share their story, because we all have a story. Can you just tell us a little bit about that work around writing a book?
Sure. So my book was essentially for me. I didn't write it for anyone else. My therapist was actually the one who suggested that I write my book. And again, that's another piece. It's okay to go and talk to someone. There's nothing wrong with us having a therapist. There's nothing wrong with us having a positive outlet. So there was so much pressure that I was feeling inside my body and being placed on my shoulders from everyone talking about what had transpired. Some people were saying, this is all your fault. You ruined our city. While there was also other people saying, thank you for your sacrifice, which means there were consistent phone calls and people consistently wanted to ask questions and consistently looking for encouragement from me. And it became overwhelming. When I talked to my therapist about it, she said, you should just write how you feel. So I was going actually, the long story short, I was actually invited to a documentary in which I saw someone making a movie about what happened in Charlottesville, and they weren't there. So the other part of this is, y'all, it's important for us to tell our own stories. Because if you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you, and they'll monetize that, and they probably won't tell it correctly. So for me, I said, I'm going to write at the suggestion of my therapist, and I'm going to tell my own story. I'm not looking to sell 50,000 books. I just want to get this off of my chest. So the original version, no one will ever see, is kind of filled with some not so good words because I was just typing angrily one night and just getting it all off. But then what I decided to do was, opposed to go with these larger book companies, I had people, and I won't say their names, but there were larger publishing companies who were asking me, hey, put the book out through us, put it out through me, and come here, come there. But I thought it was important for me to support a Black woman who had a small loan book publishing company in Norfolk, Virginia. So I thought, why not support her and have my book published through that company and let her make some revenue while I make some as well, and we go on this together to show and exemplify that we don't have to always run to other people to get us where we need to be. We are good enough for ourselves. We're good enough on our own. And if God wants us to share our story, he'll provide a platform for us to do so. So within the book, you hear literally just a 2-year synopsis of everything that happened from my perspective. And then again, subsequently, we talk about not only ways in which we are able to get through a tragedy within our city, but ways in which how we can lead other cities and provide examples of coming out of that. And more importantly, when you're dealing with white supremacy, you have the power because the ancestors put it in you to defeat it. And I kind of live by this quote. Nipsey Hussle says it in one of his, on the intro track of Victory Lap. He says, a little message from the set, we accept the challenge. And I firmly believe that in everything that we do, we have to accept the challenge. Whether that means my ancestors telling me that to tell other people's ancestors or those who are in present day, accept the challenge and go be bold and do what we have to do, then we'll do it. If I have to accept the challenge of being a better person and dealing with that very difficult thing inside of me, then I have to do it. If that means dealing with selfishness, if that means with dealing with not treating people the way in which they should be, if that means I need to deal with my ego, whatever that means, there is a challenge that I have to be willing to accept to be able to become better. And if you can't do that internally, you definitely won't be able to do that on a different scale. But I firmly believe that because we've been able to do that, it's led God to open up different doors, and there's still a long way to go, which is why we're here with Brandon Frame, Dr. Brandon Frame right now.
Dr. Wes Bellamy, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you hit on tell your story before they do. So all our stories are important. Talked about accountability, the importance of protesting as well as voting and finding your place and using your skill set. You gave us so many different things to walk away with today around turning your anger and frustration into activism and movements. And we truly thank you for your time today to share all this information with us. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you, my brother. I should.
So what we're gonna do now, first is if you wanna drop some hand claps, give a virtual hand clap to Dr. Wes Bellamy for joining us. So what I'm actually gonna do right now is I'm turning it over back to DJ Young Wavy Fox, who's gonna do a giveaway. That giveaway will include the book, Monumental, as well as I'll put it up here so you can see, spotlight it, Black Man Can t-shirt. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna turn it over to her and let her do the giveaway.
What's going on, guys? What's going on, guys? We're gonna play a little game today. Hope you guys are excited. I played a little snippet of this earlier, but I'm gonna definitely throw it back again, and I wanna, let's see who can guess the following line. So when I stop the song, inside the chat room, whoever figures out what the next line is for the song will win Dr. Wesley's book and the prize. All right, ready?
Hey, this thing inside Johnny Big Redemption Live. Know what I'm talking about? Hold up. Whoa, 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 whoa. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way, yeah. Get out the way, put them out the way, yeah. You ain't no Whitney or beat me up. You ain't no Whitney or win. Win, 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 win. Curve everything else. Win, 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 win. Please stop saying it.
What is the next line? Put it right there in the chat to win the prize, guys. Come on, you can do it, Kings.
That kid, Oren Williams.
That's
Win,
one of the
win, win?
that's one of the speakers.
Okay. And then Enrique Sanchez had Win, 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 which was the first one that came in.
Okay, so Enrique Sanchez.
Yes, Enrique Sanchez.
Enrique Sanchez is the winner. So Enrique, what you can do is send me, I'm Brandon Frame, in the chat. Send me a direct message, and I'll get with your email address, and then I will follow up so that we can get you your book and your T-shirt. So thank you so much, Enrique. All right, congratulations.
Congrats, man.
So we're gonna move to our next piece, and what we want to do is we want to create, we want to have breakout groups. And so there are about 16 different men. They're gonna be in groups of 2, and they are gonna be in group and breakout sessions with you. And they have different prompts for us to have a conversation on Dr. Wes Bellamy's things that he shared, as well as just talking about the events of the last 2 weeks, and really the events of the last 400 years, but more so in the last 2 weeks, and as well as what Dr. Wes Bellamy shared. So we're gonna go into breakout groups now, and and you'll meet the different gentlemen. They'll be introducing themselves. We'll be back here in about 20 minutes to move with the last portion of the Building a Better Brother Summit. So we're gonna go into breakout groups now, and I'm gonna let Josh move us into those breakout groups.
I'm saying either way, by the side, killing this side. Don't you wanna dance with me? No, I could dance like Michael Jackson. I could get the passion. It's a thriller in the track. Baby, don't you wanna dance with me? No, I could dance like Michael Jackson. I could get you satisfaction. And you know we out here every day with it. I'ma show you how to get it. You know, right foot up, left foot stop, left foot up, right foot stop. Basically, I'm saying either way, we about to stop. Kill it, this one slide. 2,000 shorties wanna talk a lot. 200 on my flip-flop. Pedal on the road like I love it now. I don't wanna slow me, I can't stop. Won't stop, won't stop. Got so many house I've been mistaken. Got so many people that I love without a true spot. Other than family, I gotta see what you mean. That's just how I think to see what you mean. Just like that, too deep for you, baby. 2 or 3 of us, I agree where it's staying. Black leather glove, no seat. Buckle zones and jacket, it's elite. Nike crossbody, got a piece. Gotta dance, but it's really on some street. I'ma show you how to get it. It go right.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. So excited. I hope that you had a very good time in the chat room. If there's one word in terms of what you felt in the chat or what you talked about or how you're feeling, please drop that in the chat. Let us know what you were thinking and what you guys talked about. We want to definitely hear from you on that. And so we're going to do another giveaway. This giveaway will be another Black Man Can t-shirt. And then one of our speakers, Carl Michelle, will be giving out his book, Hip Hop 365, which is a collection of lyrics from different artists, but inspirational words behind them. So Carl Michelle has allowed for us to give away one of his books. So I'm gonna turn it over to DJ Young Wavy Fox, and she is going to do another challenge for you, and we'll be looking in the chat to see if you get the lyrics right.
What's going on, guys? I hope you guys enjoyed your break rooms. All right, we're back for another game. Whoever gets this right, you win that hip hop book. I know y'all want it. I'm gonna start now.
All's my life I has to fight. All's my life hard times like that, bad chips like that. Nazareth,
What is the next line? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat somewhere. Let's go.
Looks like Raphael Nelson was the first one.
Raphael Nelson. Raphael Nelson. All right. Vinny has stated that Raphael Nelson was the first one. So Raphael, send me in the chat. Send me
Raphael said he's a teacher. He said give it to a student.
Oh, okay. We got to do the first student. First student.
Only students. Only students. Only students.
You know, he says he's doing it on his phone, so
What about
hopefully he'll
So it would be
realize
who's
to
Renette?
unmute
No,
himself.
let's see.
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
Just do the
Yes.
roll call.
It would be Jeremiah will be the next. Yes.
What's Jeremiah's last name?
I have Ostine, Ostine.
All right. So Jeremiah, send Brandon Frame a direct message with your email address, and we will follow up so that you get your t-shirt and your book. So we thank you. Congratulations, Jeremiah, on winning the t-shirt and the book from Carl Michelle. So again, I hope you're really enjoying the conversation. We're going to keep the same energy. We're going to bring my brother, Stevan Lewis, to the stage. He's coming to us from California. So it's 1 o'clock where he's at, but he's here with us to have a conversation. He is a therapist, but his work is specifically around imposter syndrome as well as anxiety and depression. And I just thought about in this time and everything that we're dealing with, it would be important to hear from somebody who professionally works with men around imposter syndrome, but also developing positive self-identity, moving past anxiety, depression, moving past their trauma. A lot of times when it comes to us, we can be arrested by our trauma, right? And we get arrested by that, and we need to break that stigma that it's okay to seek help and find people who can help us move past the different experiences in our life. So excited to have my brother Stevan Lewis from California checking in with us. Stevan, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, sir. Thanks for having me be a part of this awesome, amazing event.
Awesome. Well, we are honored to have you. And so to get started, we're gonna get right in it because we got like 20 minutes left here, and so this is important content, information here. So first, talk to us about like how you got into wanting to get into the mental health field, right? Because we know that one struggle in this space is that people of color, Black men, are looking for therapists that look like them, right? And so what was the inspiration for you to even want to go into the mental health space?
For sure, great question. So for me, as a young kid, and this might surprise some, is that I've always kind of been curious about people's behavior. I can remember back to times in elementary when I would see a kid get in trouble that, you know, kind of made me think like, well, what's going on? What's the backstory as to why this kid's getting in trouble? And that's at like, you know, age 9. And so just all my life, I've kind of been that guy to be that person for my friends who come to, you need to chat or process stuff or get stuff off your chest. And so it was a natural transition. So I was able to luckily find a profession that was going to pay me to be who I was anyway.
Awesome. That's perfect. You're cutting in and out. So the sound is cutting in and out. So
Can you hear me now better?
let's see. We got the head. Let's see. I want to make sure everybody hears all the information that you're sharing.
Is this better? Is that better
Let's see.
or worse? Is that better?
Give me count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's still in and out a little bit. Still cutting in and out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's perfect. That is right there. Whatever that is, that is what we want.
Right.
So we talk about, one is with your work. First, before we get to imposter syndrome, because I do want to spend most of the time there, anxiety and depression. Can you tell everyone on the call like the difference between anxiety and depression?
For sure. So the way I conceptualize anxiety is kind of a fear of the future. Albert Ellis, the guy who's kind of the founder of the style of therapy I do, said it was a crisis of the imagination. So think about kind of always being concerned or fearful of something that hasn't happened yet, but you're telling yourself that in the future I'm going to experience some sort of unpleasant predicament or instance or circumstance. And so you're worried excessively, about that stuff, or incessantly about that. Depression is more of like the other side of that, of where we're, so sad that we aren't able to kind of continue to function in our daily kind of activities or routines. And so that might look like me not getting out of bed. That might look like in Black men or, young Black boys, might look like anger or irritability, right? And so that I don't have a lot of patience or time for a lot of BS. And so that, if somebody comes and does something to me, even in a joking manner, it may set me off. And so that's kind of my experience with it, or how I understand it.
Absolutely. I appreciate giving that clarity in terms of the differences between the two. And then now moving into, so tell us what imposter syndrome is. Definitely something that we hear about. And then even like myself, like I know there isn't a person maybe that's listening right now that hasn't had a moment where imposter syndrome creeps in. Like I can think of multiple times where I was like, do I belong? Should I be here? And I don't really have any reason to feel that I shouldn't, but it just creeps in. So tell us, what is imposter syndrome?
So you're hitting it, the nail on the head. That imposter syndrome is really this nagging belief that I'm a fraud, or I'm going to be found out to be a fraud, right? And it comes from a place of where even though we are doing really well in life and that we're accomplishing things and we're getting some success, we aren't really able to connect to that success. And so we constantly feel as though, hey, maybe I don't belong, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. And we question and question and question and never really feel like I'm capable. And so for people that kind of live with this stuff, it may make them not kind of seek out opportunities. It may make them kind of be less, adventurous kind of in relationships or just in their personal life. And the idea is that like you're holding yourself back because you won't buy into the belief that you actually have what it takes to get to where you've gotten to.
And so thank you for clarifying. And I know a lot of people listening right now, that just hit them. They're like, oh, I can relate, right? And so what type of people, like in terms of the people that really experience imposter syndrome?
So it could be anybody. The people that I kind of work with or see in my practice are individuals that are really kind of high achievers, whether that's kind of in their work, in their high like wage earners, or maybe they have like a ton of education and could be professors or have prestigious jobs, or could be really creative and doing really well and getting something where people love their art, whether that's music or actual drawing or what have you. But they always feel like they aren't really as good as people tell them they are, or based on the recognition that they've gotten. So they live in this fear of being found out. And so if you want to like kind of conceptualize or think about where it comes from, it's people who kind of had childhoods maybe where they weren't really supported or weren't really praised for the things they did well, that maybe they had parents who kind of pointed out where they were struggling or where they needed to kind of improve. And so a lot of the information or kind of conversation from parents was, you aren't doing enough, right? And so they got this message that I'm not good enough. Or sometimes it's for people who are maybe like the one in their family to kind of have accomplished the most, right? And so that, you're the person who made it to college and nobody else in your family has. And so you feel like, well, maybe I don't really know what it takes to be successful because no one else in my family's kind of done what I've done. And then the other thing you kind of find is that maybe it's for people who might be the only one like them in certain spaces that they're in. So that if I'm, think of like women in tech, maybe men in nursing, Black male therapists, these places where we don't always kind of see a ton of people that look like us. And so we kind of look around the room and say, well, maybe I don't really belong here. People of color in majority white spaces.
Mm. I mean, those are, you hit on so many different areas, and so many people can relate to those, to being in some of those places, or that befitting to them. So with that, what steps do people need to take to overcome imposter syndrome? Our young men that are on the call that can maybe relate to different things, or have a feeling of not being valuable, or that they can't, that they don't belong at the table, or they can't lead, or whatever it may be that's keeping them from reaching their full potential. What advice or strategies can you provide them to move forward?
So for me, the way I put it is that we all have this inner bully. The inner bully is really like we all know what a real bully is, and what that person, goal is to make us feel terrible and horrible. Our inner bully does the same thing. It really, preys on our insecurities, places where we don't feel really confident, and it tries to make us feel bad, hurt ourselves, or hurt us, and make us feel like we don't have what it takes. And so I say, question everything the inner bully tells you, right? Because we know the inner bully is a liar. And so, if you've gotten a promotion, or if you've gotten praise for something, your inner bully will try to say, well, that was luck, right? Or try to explain it away as a reason beyond yourself. And so my thing is to say, well, where's the evidence to really support that? So challenge everything, so that if you are in a space, let's assume that you belong there, unless there's a lot of evidence to support that that's not the case.
Mm. I appreciate you sharing some of those strategies there. And so, and this thing around mental health, we know that definitely as Black men, as men of color, there is the stigma around seeking help and going to see a therapist. What advice do you have for us and to the young men around pushing past that stigma that you can't be vulnerable, you can't ask for help, and processing and sharing your emotions?
Yeah, so a lot of that has been, kind of, I guess, I don't want to say like beat into us, but like it's been drilled into us that, asking for help is weakness, or a sign of weakness, or that, having emotions is, another sign of weakness. And, we weren't supposed to have emotions, then why do we have them, right? I think we're all entitled to experience those things. And so what I kind of do is tell people that, like, asking for help is actually one of the hardest things to do. Me kind of standing in my room and just being angry at the world is much easier than saying, hey, I am struggling with something, can you help me? And so saying that, like, there are people that look like me, that look like you and I, that are doing this work, and that, can provide a supportive place. And so just like if you broke your leg, you wouldn't just kind of stay in your room and be like, oh, I'm just going to deal with it. You go to a doctor to get it fixed. If you're having some psychological or emotional pain, why would you also kind of not go and get that assistance or support that is open or accessible to you?
Mm. We have a question that came in the chat. It says, is it wrong to think that sometimes the inner bully makes us work harder and stimulates us to change our situation?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question, because oftentimes my clients will tell me that, well, it helps me from being complacent, right? So that, if I'm always working hard or pushing, but also think about this, is that I don't know if your brain knows the difference between the two, right? Whether it's motivating or whether it's coming from a place of fear and you're trying to avoid being found out. And so I'm thinking if you aren't clear on which one that is, then you could be living in kind of a state of like hypervigilance, or, kind of constant worry or concern or anxiety about being found out, when you haven't really attached to, what has made you be as successful as you are.
Mm. Thank you for answering that question there. And so even when we think about stigmas, can you share a little bit about how that there's like there's the gender aspect of us as men, but then even into our ethnicities, right? If you're a Caribbean or African American, can you talk about breaking through just on a cultural lens as well, in terms of us breaking through and past those stigmas and barriers?
Right. So I think that like getting assistance or support is not like a foreign concept to Black folk. I think it just looks different. So that like in some spaces it's okay to go talk to your pastor, right? So you're going to pray about it, and that's where your help's going to come from. It's going to come from on high. Some cultures don't have like a concept of therapy per se. So I had some friends who, are like from, different countries kind of in Africa or what have you. And, it's not that concept of therapy, like what is therapy, especially like in East Africa. But then there's like the idea that we go to kind of the village mother, right? Or like the grandmother or the elders, right? And so that seeking support is not an unheard of thing to get some kind of guidance around that stuff. But the way it looks, and I think that, maybe that's partly because of how like the field of, counseling psychology came about and established from like white folk or what have you, and that has kind of impacted us being okay to go kind of seek that stuff out. But it's not a foreign concept, but I think that the stigma around it is that we haven't always been safe or felt safe in those spaces. And so there's the narrative of I don't want to be put on medication or I don't want to be hospitalized. And, you know, as a therapist, that's not my goal. My goal is to make sure that you stay safe. And if those are tools to help, you know, accomplish that. But at the same time, I just want you to be okay and not need Stevon Lewis anymore.
Thank you for hitting so many different points here. And so as we come to a close with your portion, what is the last piece of advice or information you want to give everyone around mental health and therapy for men and boys?
I would just say kind of normalizing the idea that getting support is a natural thing. Just like I said, if it were for some physical ailment, we'd go. You know, and hopefully we'd go. That's the idea, right? We don't always have that where, you know, we'll wait to the last minute. But also kind of just saying that, like, you know, I think in this younger generation is that it's more talked about and more accepted. But, you know, you don't have to struggle or suffer in silence. That there's a community of people that are wanting you to be the best version of yourself. And if you can kind of access that stuff, then do it. I mean, it's no different from you getting a coach to work on your basketball skills outside of the season, to work on your shooting, or, you know, a track coach to work on, you know, your form or what have you. Think of therapy as that, hey, you know, there's a version of you and that version can always kind of be improved. And so, you know, here's someone that can assist you with improving in those areas.
And I actually, you know, I have one more question because you mentioned a phrase that I like to say, and I'm like, oh man, how didn't I write that down as a question? Was around suffering in silence, right? So I think that's really big. And so we have young boys as young as 6th grade, and then we have grown men and we have high school boys. Talk about pushing past, like every male on the call can think about, and even the women that are on the call can think about suffering in silence. And really like thinking like, I got to handle it myself. I need to do it myself. I don't need to. Talk about really pushing past that idea and the trauma that comes from suffering in silence and why we can't do that.
Right. And so, I mean, a lot of that comes from you got to man up, you got to tough it out, right? To push past our kind of emotional or psychological pain. And so what we do then is that we, one, don't want to tell people because we're going to be embarrassed by that. And we don't want to be judged negatively, or that we don't want to burden other people. Right? Everybody else has their problems too, so I don't really want to burden other people with the stuff that's going on with me. In doing that, you know, kind of isolates you, it puts you on an island. And so if there's no reprieve or no escape, then how are you healing from the stuff that is impacting you negatively? You aren't, and you're just kind of living in it. And, you know, if you're kind of just struggling with it, you're thinking about and spending a ton of time focused on how life isn't good for you. And so how could you feel better, or how do you get better by just ignoring the problem or not saying anything about it? In my experience, you know, there's the idea or concept of, you know, time heals all wounds. I'm also feeling like, well, you know, if that were the case, then, you know, why do we kind of clean out a wound or do something to it, right? We don't just kind of fall and, you know, we scrape our knee and we just leave the dirt in there, right? Like we, you know, put some alcohol peroxide on, we try to clean it out. And so I'm saying that's something like the time is going to heal it, right? We're going to do some stuff, but like, is it going to heal it appropriately or the best way that it could?
Oof. I mean, that was a mic drop right there. I mean, you hit on so many points through this around not suffering in silence. You gave us a little bit around the difference between anxiety and depression, steps to overcoming, telling us what imposter syndrome is and overcoming that. So Stevon, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon and being a part of this conversation as we look to build a better brother today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Really appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure.
You're welcome. Yeah, everybody give a virtual round of applause to Stevon. So as we move and get closer to our close for today, I'm going to bring up my brother to the stage, Frank Brady. He is a Def Jam spoken word poet, travels all over the world. And so I think it's important for him to give us a powerful spoken word as we get ready to get closer to our close today. Frank, it's all yours.
All right, cool. Am I clear, Frame? We can hear me clear?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So yeah, I'm gonna do this poem real quick, man. And I think, you know, wherever my spirit leads me, I'm gonna go with it. I might scratch in and out of some poems, but I think there's multiple messages and it's a lot I'm feeling on my heart, and I wanna get that out real quick, right? So this is for y'all. It's for y'all. You just gonna go with it. Let's tell you what. I call myself this hope dealer. Learn to push dreams and sling hope. I show them how to cope realer. Moonwalking over adversity, Michael Jackson flow like a black man. You gonna watch this thriller. Every word intentional, I got no time for filler. So I'm flashing by like a flash in sky. On my back, black man, I got my family, I'm a pillar. Skin chocolate, but I don't hate the vanilla. Half demon, half man of God. This flesh ain't royal family. I push to break free. See, I will never sell my soul, and I can back that. You see, it's purpose over everything. GPS can't track that. See, real recognize real. Where you been at? I've been in these trenches with my mind on the line. PTSD, I pride to the grind. I've been searching for means. My youngest kings was kicked in, anxiety kicked out. I've been searching for fiends. I've been searching for means. You see, when I teach my young kings, my youth, I try and cover all bases. So my youth can feel paid in full instead of short change to their faces. Because there's too many Ricos and not enough aces. Call a spade a spade. I tell the ladies, if his heart is in the club, he's not ready for his king. But I tell the fellas, if she's only chasing diamonds, she's not looking for no queen, no king. If she only chasing diamonds, she ain't looking for no king. I said, both of y'all jacks of all trades, but y'all don't want the same thing. Y'all jokers, wow. Come here, let me feel you. I know that pain real, and you feel you. But I know God, the plug, let him heal you. Family, listen to me. Listen to me, fam. I got lucid dreams of pushing juice around the world. It's too much sauce to handle. My light eternal. You can't snuff out this candle. Call a spade a spade. Family, I don't ride the wave. I make the wave. We are not on the same. I told them I'm a black man cooking like James Harden on the court. Fam, I'm what happened when Cain told Abel, you can catch this work. Fam, I'm not talking about spitting work. I'm talking about working plans. This is young King going from cell block 8 to owning real estate on exit 8 with a mind state at the divine rate. I'm in this just to change the fate. You got to understand it's the fight. Black man, I got my family on my back telling mama it's going to be all right. Lift these hands so you can catch these blessings. I ain't got no time for second guessings. I've been in them trenches stressings while I still have family in them trenches stressings. While I've walked in rooms with youngins that got more drip than salad dressing. Fam, we is not the same. We came this far. Fam, we is not the same, fam. I told him how we came this far. How I shattered roadblocks and racial barriers to become legend. Called impossible by his true name, breakable. Been the descendants of kings and queens. Record-breaking lineage of hope and change. Those who've been fiends refuse to break under scowl of the pressure, fam. Black man, we done spun pain into passion, flip hope into action, slip up. It still gained traction. Been a movement since Garvey Pan-Africanized NY. Been prolific. That's why we hold them black girls in our arms every time they be cry. Grind hard to get by. Go hard from NY to shy. Push dreams so we can fly. Family, I'm talking about these body bags turning into toe tags. Too many black bodies turning into hashtag, fam. Hashtag Breonna Taylor. Hashtag Ahmaud Arbery. Hashtag Sean Bell. Give them hell. Hashtag George Floyd. Come on. Fam, it's been 400 years and we still can't breathe. Fam, it's been 400 years and we still can't breathe. Ain't been able to breathe since COVID-19. Because even Corona racist, because she in our community is heavy like a silent, like a killer. What's 6 feet social distancing when you can't even get 3 feet in the corner store? In between, fam, we still can't breathe. This for every hashtag of a black angel that got their wigs clipped too soon. We still can't breathe, man. Breonna was shot while she sleep. Ahmaud Arbery couldn't even jog and be free. We still can't breathe. You want to know what pain is? You want to know what pain is, fam? I'm telling you. Pain is a black man. Pain is a black man screaming for his mama with his last breath of his life. Knee on his neck trying to choke it, rocket for life. We still can't breathe. It's been 400 years, millions of tears, lifetime full of fears, death of our peers, bad checks that never clear. We still can't breathe, dear God. All we want to do is just breathe. Because living while black is like constantly chasing your next breath. All we want to do is breathe, but they can't understand, fam. Killing us off. Because America, unfortunately, I still can't breathe. Feels like a 2020 broken remix of 2014. We still can't breathe, but we have Tupac, fam. We hip hop, we Tupac. We Nate Parker pushing revolution aside of a heartbeat. We concrete. And we ain't gonna stop fighting until we breathe. We got to breathe, even though we still can't breathe. We black kings and black excellence. They can't make us breathe, but nah, we know how to succeed. That's what it means to breathe. We black excellence, family. Yes, indeed.
Ooh. Them some bars, the bars hit different. You know, throw a fist up, give a head wrap, clap. You know, that's my brother Frank Brady. I thought I knew I had him I called him. I called him. I said, yo, I need you to close out the summit. I need you to close out the summit because I knew that the words that he would bring would be exactly what we need. So how we close out all the summits as well after this is we're gonna do a pledge. It's a little different how to do it with the squares. So I'm gonna stay on the mic, and then you say this even though your mic is not on, but say it out loud. We're gonna do the Black Man Can pledge that we say at the end of every summit. So you just repeat the words after me. And so or should we everybody turn their mic on, and then we're gonna make it work. We'll just everybody turn their mic on. We're gonna see how this works because I know it moves around, but we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna say the sentence and you just repeat after me. All right. I will live my life as the wonderful creation I am.
I will live my life as the wonderful creation I am. Wonderful creation I am.
I will coat my mind with knowledge.
I will coat my mind with knowledge.
So will not be penetrated by foolishness.
So will not be penetrated by foolishness.
I will value brotherhood.
I will value brotherhood.
Always be my brother's keeper.
And always be my brother's keeper.
My stride is wide.
My stride is wide.
Because I walk in the footsteps of giants.
Because I walk in the footsteps of giants.
So I'll define myself.
I will define myself.
So I can redefine the world.
So I can redefine the world.
I will be different.
I will be different.
I will be great.
I will be great.
I will never stop.
I will never stop.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our Building a Better Brother Summit, presented by the Black Men Can and the Urban Assembly. The Urban Assembly is truly dedicated to uplifting our young men and all students of color. So that's why they made this happen. So we really are grateful and appreciative to them. Thank you to all the speakers, from spoken word to breakout groups to one-on-ones. We appreciate you for taking part today. I want to shout out Josh for handling all the tech stuff as well and getting us all in the breakout rooms and handling everything. And again, thank you to the Urban Assembly for believing and making sure we create a space for our young men so that we can have these conversations and that we can all be better and get better because we're building brotherhood and fostering positive self-identity. So everyone have a blessed Wednesday. And please, stay in touch with the Urban Assembly, stay in touch with the Black Men Can. Shout out our DJ Young Wavy Fox, for bringing us with the tunes. So thank you. I think I got everybody. If I'm forgetting you, I apologize. But thank you to everyone who made this day and this event possible. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Be firm. That's my Connecticut homeboy.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon.
Appreciate y'all.
Rain, thank you, family.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Bro, literally garbage.